Okay, today we're going to start on Nun Beis Amud Aleph, and it's maybe 3/4 of the way down. By Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna asked the following question. Is that where we stopped? I think that's where we left off. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Source of learning we should have based on English immediately. And also we're learning for name for my father and for Naftali and Minuch Bela. Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna had a question. And the only thing we need to know from before is the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. When a Jew makes this is Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva about if a Jew makes an idol but didn't worship it yet, does it become prohibited from the moment it's made, or only from the moment it's worshipped, from the time it's worshipped? According to Rabbi Akiva, only after it's worshipped would it be prohibited. And according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's prohibited immediately. And then the reverse is the machlekes by a non-Jew that makes an idol. A non-Jew makes an idol, according to Rabbi Akiva, it's prohibited immediately, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, only after it's worshipped. So it switches the two views. Anyway, okay. So now the question is, Ritach Keli La'avodas Kechavim. Now, Rashi learns Ritach means that the Keli broke. You have a vessel that broke, and it was used for an idol. Now, you banged the vessel out until you banged it, so you filled in the gaps of the break that probably had, got a hole in it. So if you, it's sort of like soldering the hole, but you didn't solder it. You banged it until the holes filled in. That is not the explanation of Rabbeinu Chananel. Rabbeinu Chananel says Ritach means that you put it into a kiln, not a kiln. What do they call for iron? Iron is a kiln also, right? What do they do? What is it called? What's the how do they make that?
The only thing I know is the word forge. I don't know where you forge something.
No, but what do they smell? A smelting pot?
Somebody from Pittsburgh.
His name told me, this guy that he works in metal. Say they actually shoot the smelting pot to let to let it come out. They shoot with a gun. They shoot a hole in it, and then they let it out because they want all the stuff to go to the bottom. And so they anyway. That's the way Elvis turned off his television at night. Okay, so Ritach Keli La'avodas Kechavim. If someone somehow he prepared this keli for Avodah Zara. Now, how did he prepare it? It was a keli once, and he's fixing it or something like that. Well, Mahu Avodas Kechavim. What's the halacha? Avodas Kechavim. Whose Avodah Zara is this? This is a keli for Avodah Zara, but who owns the Avodah Zara? We're going to learn on the next page that when you nullify an Avodah Zara, you nullify also the kelim that come along with it. If you nullify the kelim, anyway, whatever the case is.
Rabbi Smith, they make a mold and then they pour the stuff in. So the mold itself.
Very good.
Thanks, Josh.
Happy birthday! Sorry.
Go Canada.
So, Avodas Kechavim the man. Whose Avodah Zara are we dealing with here? Avodas Kechavim, David Kechavim. Are we dealing with an idol that belonged to an idolater? See that? Avodas Kechavim, an idol of an idolater. So, Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Kiva, Shamshi Avodas Kechavim, Him Shamshi Avodas Kechavim, Menaser and Medshiyavda. We had a machlekes. When does an idol become prohibited? After it's made or after it's worshipped? That was only the idol itself. We had a machlekes. But everyone agrees that if it's not the idol itself, if it's only a utensil for an idol, it only becomes prohibited once it's actually used. The utensil for the idol. So this utensil, why should it be prohibited immediately? No one holds that it's prohibited immediately. It has to first be worshipped. So it must be that it's not the idol itself doesn't belong to the non-Jew. because the utensil for that idol would not be prohibited once it's made, only after it's worshipped. It must be that the idol itself belongs to a Jew. Now the Gemara says, Ali b'demant. Well, which opinion do you want to ask the question? Because remember, we said there's a machlekes about an idol that was made by a Jew. Does it become prohibited immediately or only after it's worshipped? That's machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. If you say that the question was asked according to Rabbi Akiva, the idol itself only becomes prohibited according to Rabbi Akiva once it's worshipped. You want to say that the utensils should become more prohibited than the idol itself? It can only be as much as the idol, and the idol only becomes prohibited once it's worshipped, and the utensils weren't worshipped yet, so it's not going to be prohibited. Rabbi Shmuel. So maybe we're following Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel holds that the idol of a Jew becomes prohibited immediately. Damar asur miyad. He says that it's prohibited immediately. What's it then? Do we say mishamshen mi mishamshen gamrinan? Do we say that no? That's an idol, but this is a utensil, and utensils should be the same status as the other utensils. Other utensils are utensils for an idol that a non-Jew made. What's the law by the non-Jew? We said everyone agrees that it's only prohibited once it's worshipped. Here's utensils of an idol of a Jew. So we should say utensils like utensils, that it's only prohibited once it's worshipped. Just like over there, the utensils of the idol of a non-Jew only are prohibited once it's worshipped, not just once it's made. Or perhaps we should say differently. Minegamar. We should learn from the idol itself. As do we learn on a chart? No, David. The answer is no. You can't make idols for. David's asking if a Jew can make idols for a non-Jew for a living. It's probably a good business, but it's not halachically acceptable. Or perhaps we learn from the idol itself. Mahi asura miyad afnisham shasur miyad. Just like the idol is prohibited immediately, also the utensils are prohibited immediately. Let me just explain the question. What the Gemara is asking is like this. It's like this halachic nuance here. I have the idol and then I have the utensils. Okay, so I have two idols. One idol is made by a Jew, by a non-Jew. Let's start with one idol is made by a Jew, non-Jewish idol. Okay, now I have utensils for the non-Jewish idol, utensils for the Jewish idol. So let's take the opinion of
utensils in this context, like he's holding a cup or
something. I think so. Maybe like the broom or the pans or the things that are used for it. I'm not sure.
for serving.
Yeah. So now, what is that? Yeah. Well, yeah. We're not talking about the offering. The offering is something else. This is the utensils that are used in the service. So now let's talk in the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says if the non-Jew made the idol, it becomes only prohibited once it's worshipped. If the Jew made the idol, it becomes prohibited immediately. That's Rabbi Shmuel's view. Now let's go to the utensils. The utensil of the non-Jew, that only becomes prohibited once it's worshipped. Utensil of the the idol that the Jew made. Now we have a question. Do we say that it's similar to the utensils? We cross over to the utensil of the non-Jew and it's only prohibited once it's worshipped. Do we say it's similar to the idol that it's being prepared for, which is the Jewish idol, which is prohibited immediately? That's the Gemara's question here. The Gemara says, well, it's interesting you're asking that question because my area the kami baile ritach keli tibaile asa. You see, there's a nuance here. The keli was once a keli for an idol. It was broken, and now you fixed it. Ritach. Ritach means you banged it out to fill in the gap. But it seems. Keli shenishmer. Well, We're going to see in a second. So far. So why do you have to fix the keli? Why don't you just say you made the keli? So Rav Hamnuna, the Gemara says, Rav Hamnuna mishum tumi yeshana kami bayalei. No. What Rav Hamnuna is asking is a different question. He's asking a question like this. There's a discussion about an old tumah. The Tanan was taught in the Mishnah. Keli mateches. If you have a metal utensil, it doesn't matter if it's a receptacle or if it's a flat keli, like a blech. It becomes tummy. When it comes to wood, there's a difference between if it's a receptacle or if it's flat. When it comes to metal, it doesn't matter. Once it's any utensil is tummy. So nishtabru, what happens if it breaks? So tiru becomes pure, just like earthenware, right? When it breaks, it becomes pure. Now the only thing is that there's other ways of purifying metal. There's no other way of purifying earthenware. Chazar and kalim. Let's say it broke, it becomes pure. Let's say you then melted it back and you turned it into a keli, or you banged it and it turned into a keli. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Yachzru l'tum yeshana, the old tumah comes back. Yeah? And now we're going to discuss Rav Hamnuna's question. Ki hadra tumah. If this keli was one time used for an idol, and then it broke, so the tumah goes off it when it breaks, right? So hani mili l'tumah deiraisa ki hadra tumah. So when do we say tumah comes back? That's only for if it would have been tamei min hatayra, biblical tumah. Like for example, touch the sheretz, touch the corpse. Such a tumah would return after it's remolded. But a rabbinic tumah wouldn't come back. Maybe there's no difference. The Gemara says that's a very good question. But why are you asking this question? You could have asked a more basic question. This is a very general question. This is not a question for Maseches Avodah Zara. This is a question for every rabbinic tumah, which there's so many rabbinic tumahs. You know, there's tumah on the hands, the tumah on water. There's all these different tumahs that you should ask. Does the rabbinic tumah come back? Not just yes, an Avodah Zara has a rabbinic tumah on it. It's just one example. You should have asked this in general. It says, you're right. We're asking one question after we asked another one. It goes like this. Tumah derabanan mihadra la yadra. Does a rabbinic tumah come back on after the vessel is remolded? In Tim Salam la yadra, tumah, even if you say that it doesn't go back, but tumah david's kecham mishum chum david's chum mishavi rabban ketumah deraisa like, do we say that we're a little bit stricter with Avodah Zara? We say that the tumah does come back. Even if it doesn't come back, do we say that by Avodah Zara it does come back? Well, the Gemara doesn't have an answer. Just take it. But it's not the original question that we were thinking. It's now, the question is, does the rabbinic impurity of the vessels of an idol come back on after the metal vessel is fixed? That's the Gemara's question. Yeah.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah. Yeah, it reappears as if there's a memory to the tumah in the metal. You flattened it out, you broke it and everything. You melted it down, made it into a new vessel, and pops back on. Oof. Could have put it in the mikveh if you want. That would resolve it. So you didn't want to do that. You tried to do the other way. So.
By learning is
Amen. Rabbi Yochanan asked his teacher, Rabbi Yanai, if there's an offering to an idol, a food offering to an idol, what's the halacha? Mi bahani lubitel litarino mituma elai. can you nullify it? Bittul meant when you like destroy it or you break it or something, or you say you're not using it anymore. Can you take off the tumma that's on it by being mevatel it? Where it says v'tiboy like kalim. Why don't you ask the question if you can take the tumma off kalim by bittul? What happens? You see, when you nullify the idol, you say you're not using it anymore, so then the prohibition goes off. If you have a vessel and you nullify it, also the prohibition would go off. You say, I'm not using it anymore. But we never discussed, I know the prohibition goes off, you're allowed to use it, but what about the rabbinic tumma? Does that go off as well? It says, Kalim like we don't have any question about that, about Kalim. Even this leitara b'mikvah. Since in a regular case of tumma, when a keli becomes tummy, what do you do with it? Put it in the mikvah. If the keli was for Avodah Zara, what do you do with it? Not put it in the mikvah. You nullify it. The nullifying of the vessel is its mikvah. That it has its own mikvah, its own type of mikvah. That's how you get rid of the impurity. So tumanami betela. So very good. You nullify it. The prohibition goes off. This is something that could be purified, right? It could be purified. So therefore, when it's pure, when the isser goes off, the tumma also goes off. The prohibition goes off. Impurity goes off as well. Only question is regarding food, because the interesting thing is that if food becomes tamei, you can't put it in the mikveh to make it tar. An apple, even though it could go in the water, it's not going to get ruined. It could go in the water, but it doesn't become pure. You put it in the mikveh. The only food that could become pure in the mikveh is water itself. You can put the water, let the water touch the water of the mikveh, and then it joins together. It's called ashaka, and that would purify the water. Otherwise, I don't know how it would work if the water's in a vessel, but otherwise you can't purify any food. Umar says, why are you asking about takruvas? An offering that you're trying to get it to lose its impurity, and that was your question. Let's say someone decided to worship food, sushi. Yeah, wants to worship the sushi, and so what's going to happen now if he says, "Okay, that's it. It's not Avodah Zara anymore. We're going to eat it. It's not Avodah Zara." So what happens now? So we could have asked the question over there: does the impurity go off when you nullify it? Because you can nullify an Avodah Zara, right? It says we didn't ask that question. Even the surah bottle tamanami betela. If the prohibition goes off, so then the impurity goes off. Our question was takruvas lavedus kechavim shaloich lemai. What's being offered to an Avodah Zara of Eichlan doesn't mean that the offering is food, or it means the Avodah Zara is food. Let me see. Given the surah batal, yeah. Since the prohibition itself cannot come off because Kid Rav Gidl, like Rav Gidl said, okay, now Rav Gidl, we head back on Daf Nun. Said that offerings don't become Amar Rav Gidl, Amar Rav Chia Bar Yosef. Rav Gidl said on back on page 58. He says, from where do we know that offerings to an idol never become nullified? He brought a verse that says, "Vayitzamdu lebal pa'ar, vayichlu zivchei mesim." They attached themselves to the idol of Pa'ar, and they ate from the offerings to the dead. And Rav Gidl explained, he said, just like the dead, the impurity never goes off it. Also, the impurity of an offering never goes off it. It's just like a corpse. It will always remain tummy. So you can remove the tumah of an idol itself, but you can't remove the tumah of an offering of an idol. That's Rav Gidl. So it says, if the prohibition doesn't go off the takruvus. So also the tumah doesn't go off it, like Rav Gidl says. Dilma, isid deraisa lay betela, but tumah derabanan batal. Maybe. Was Rav Gidl talking about the tumah or the prohibition? Gidl, the prohibition. Rav Gidl was talking about the prohibition. So now our question is, Rav Gidl said that the prohibition never goes off. So do we say that just like the prohibition never goes off, also the tumah doesn't go off? Or do we say when you nullify it, or Dilma, is it the raisele batal? What's very strong is the prohibition. That never goes off. The tumah, the rabbanon, the weaker part of this, which is only a rabbinic tumah, that could be batal. Gemara says teku. Okay, so now let me just check what exactly the case of this was. Bez. Right, where none is in bez. So they're saying that it's takruvas, an offering to an idol. Oh, that the takruvas is food. That the offering is food. Do we say that just like the prohibition never goes off it, also the tumah never goes off it? Or do we say that it's only the prohibition that doesn't go off, but the tumah could go off? So also this we leave as a suffix. Okay. Next Gemara is Boy Minei Rabbi Yosi ben Shaul mi Rabbi. Rabbi Yosi ben Shaul, we don't have him often. Rabbi Yosi ben Shaul asked Rabbi the following question: Kalim sheshimshu bahen beis chanyai, mal shishtamshu ben bebeis hamikdash. What happened was at the end of the Gemara Menachos, coming up this year, end of the Gemara Menachos, there's a discussion about whether it's actually machlaikas. Whatever the case is, ignoring the machlaikas, whatever the case is, there was a fellow named Chanya. He was one of the sons of Shimon HaTzadik, and because of a fight between him and his brother, he ended up running to Alexandria in Egypt, and he made his own temple. Shimon HaTzadik was a Kohen Gadol, right? And he who we left it over to him or to his brother or whatever. There's a machlaikas. Whatever he ran, and he made his own temple. Now there's another machlaikas. When he made a temple, did he make the temple for idolatry because he was so upset? He just made okay, that's it. We're worshiping, some idol, or did he make the temple for Hashem? It was just like a breakaway shtibel that he made. There's the main temple, and then there's a breakaway, and so definitely there would be a prohibition of offering sacrifices there, because you're not allowed to bring a sacrifice outside the temple. So there would be a prohibition, but it doesn't mean that it's idolatry, right? It doesn't mean it's idolatry. Anyway, so Rabbi Yosi ben Shaul asked the question. By the way, there's a Mishnah that says that Koyanim that served in Beis Chanya should not serve in the Beis Hamikdash. Now he's asking, Yosef ben Shaul is asking, what about vessels that were in the temple of Chanya? Are those vessels allowed to be, maybe Sheamus and stuff? Can you take it over and reuse it? Only once? Oh.
Robert Goulet was on. He had nothing against Shabbat.
Oh, okay. Okay, a very important piece of information. Okay, so now the question is, what about the vessels? Can you reuse them in the temple? The Gemara asks, the question that Yosef ben Shaul has for Rebbe is according to the opinion that the temple of Chanya was not a house of Avodah Zara. According to that opinion, so Ditanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, Koyanim sheshimshu bebeis Chanya lo yishamish b'mikdash b'Yerushalayim. Kayanim that served in Beis Chanya, you're not allowed to serve in the temple in Jerusalem. Indefinitely, Kayanim that worshipped an idol can't serve in the temple. Now, what this implies is that Beis Chanya was not an idol, right? Beis Chanya was for Hashem. Kayanim who consider Rabbanim Mishum Debnei Dayaninu. Now, this is all a rabbinic penalty. That you worship there, you can't come back and work here. You worked for the competitor. Now we're not going to hire you. So so that's because B'nai Deya, they have the logic, they have knowledge, they should have understood not to do that. And they made a decision to do that, so we punish them. Aval Kalim Loi. But the vessels, they didn't make any decision. It's their fault that they were there. They made them over there. Okay, it's not their fault. We don't put a penalty on them. We can use them now. Maybe we don't make that distinction. We say, 1 second, it was used there. We're not using them here. We're not using them in the temple. Amarle, so Rebbe said, Asurim Hemel Mikra Hayabedenu Shachnuhu. Rebbe answered, Yosef ben Shaul, he says, the answer to your question is that it's prohibited. We can't use those vessels. However, I had a verse that proved it. I just can't remember it. Remember the guy in medical school? They asked him in his test, what does the appendix do? He says, I knew, I just forgot. Okay. Eisvei, they asked the question. Eisvei, I guess, is he asked him a question. This is Yosef ben Shaul is asking Rebbe. You just told me that it's prohibited. He says, 1 second. Kol ha'kelim asher his niach hamelech achaz b'malchusay b'ma'alai hechinu v'ikdashnu. Achaz was the father of Chizkiyahu. Now he was a idolater, and he had abandoned some vessels. It says all those vessels, they took them, they prepared them, and they sanctified them, and they're going to use them in the temple. My love, hichinu. What does it mean? They prepared them. Not belinu. They put them in the mikveh. Hikdashnu. What does it mean? They sanctified them. They have to use the shemen to do it. They consecrated it.
When Rachel stole her father's vessels.
The Rashi says with oil. Yeah, when she stole the truffle.
It's her intent to table them and just to go with it.
That's a good question. It doesn't tell us that information. What would she do with them after she?
Did she table them?
Why are you saying vessels?
Well,
It was idols.
Those were the idols themselves. The idols themselves, you would need a non-Jew to nullify it. Once she acquires it, she was Jewish. She wouldn't be able to nullify it. You'd have to have a non-Jew nullify it.
Let's
It'd
combine
be
the
too
two
late.
story. One of what's his name went back to get his.
I know what you're doing.
Caleb
Yaakov
himself.
Right.
I knew exactly what you're doing.
Amarle. So the problem is Yosef ben Shaul is asking Rebbe. He says, "What are you talking about? That it's prohibited to use." Achaz was idolatrous person, and they used his vessels afterwards. Amarle. So Rebbe says, "Baruch atah l'shamayim, blessed are you to heaven. Shechzarta li avidasi, you reminded me. You returned my lost object. You reminded me the pasuk that I forgot." Echino, what does it mean? They prepared the vessels shagunzum. They prepared them to be buried, to be hidden away. Vikdashnu, and then they sanctified shekdashnu acherim tachteim. They bought new ones in their place. Yeah, they got new ones in their place. They didn't use them. Exactly the opposite of what we thought this meant. Lema Messiah, I'll bring a support for this. That they don't use it. Mizrachas tfeinis ba ganzu beis chashmina yisavni mizbeach sheshaktu anshe yavan. There was a chamber in the 4 chambers in the Beis Hamikdash in the Ezras Nashim. One of those chambers, the one that was on the northeast chamber, east is the outer part, it's the front. So the northeast chamber was used to hold the stones of the Mizbeach that became impure by the people, by the Greeks when they came into the temple. right? So they used, I don't know what was used before this time, but it was after this time. That's what it was used for. Rav Sheshes explains, what does it mean? It became impure, became defiled or contaminated or whatever. That's because they used it for idolatrous purposes in the temple. So now they had to take those stones and put them away. Now, so what do we see from this? That
Because they put idols on top of those stones. Then they bring in.
they had to get, yeah, okay. Now
destroy them.
you have to
right?
listen to this. Listen to what's going on. Rashi explains this. He says, were these stones prohibited because they were used for idolatrous practice? Rashi says no, because it didn't belong to them. You can't make something prohibited. You can't offer, your animals to someone else's house and say, okay, your car. Now you can't drive your car. I slaughtered a goose, right outside. Your car's finished. That's it. You can't use it. No, it doesn't work like that. So, really, it's not prohibited. But nevertheless, the rabbi said that you can't use it for the Beis Hamikdash, even though it's just a vessel. So this would be the same thing with Beis Chanya. Even though it wasn't for an idol, the Kalim are Nasser, but nevertheless, there could be a rabbinic decree on it that prohibits it. Just like just like these vessels didn't become really prohibited for an idol because it wasn't theirs. Okay. Amar Rav Papa says, Hasam Kra Ashkach V'Darash. Over there was a special pasuk. Why did they have to hide away the stones of the altar? Found the pasuk Ksiv Ubo B'Pritzim V'Chalalua, that the Pritzim, what are Pritzim? What do they call them? The lawless, and profane them. Amri hechi avid, nechi navid. They said like this: what do you want us to do with the stones? Nitzberino, do you want us to break the stones? That's what maybe you destroy something, an idol. It says, but then we won't be able to use it because avanim shleimus amarachmana. It says that you need perfectly complete stones. You can't have broken stones. Well, the nasrino, maybe afterwards we'll sand it down, and we'll make it flat again after it's broken. It says like son of Aleim Barzal Amrachmani. You can't sand it down afterwards. You can't put iron on it. It has to be perfect from the time that it's hewn. 1 second, Vamai. What's the whole problem? Let them break it, so break the idol, and then they'll take it for themselves. Okay, I missed one point over here. What Rav Papa said was, he quoted that pasuk. That pasuk tells us that when the lawless people came into the temple, the vessels of the temple left their holiness status, and they became hefker, and that's why they were able to make it prohibited. That's what that means, chalaluah, and it means that they were then able to make it prohibited. We were saying the whole time that it didn't belong to them, so they can't prohibit it. It says no, they could prohibit it because somehow the way that it was set up was that when they came in, everything became hefker. So now, but they could, if they break it, who would break it? They would have to get a non-Jew to break it, right, in order to use it now. They couldn't, if a Jew breaks it, a Jew can't nullify an idol, only a non-Jew can nullify an idol. So they would get a non-Jew to nullify it, to break it, and then they would take it for themselves. You can't use it in the temple, but you could use it for yourselves. They wanted to say that you're not allowed to use silver and gold in the world, because maybe it's the silver and gold that was in the temple, which was holy. You shouldn't be allowed to use it. But we asked the question: why should you not? Why should you say that all the silver and the gold in the world is prohibited because of the gold of the temple? That's not the majority of the gold. There's a Elamar Abaya. Abaya says, okay. So 1 second. What would that tell me? what's the connection to the stones? So, so we answered. We answered. Elam Rabbi Bixalignas Dinara Hadriana Turiana. There were certain coins from these two Roman emperors, Trajan and also Hadrian. No, that's good. Were the kings of Rome. We have very bad things to say about Hadrian because he was bad to the Jews, but I think in conventional history he was a good emperor, not to the Jews, but there's different perspectives on history. Oh, he was bad, Hadrian the Wicked. In Roman history, he was the hero. That makes sense. He conquered it, England, Britain. Someone told me that there's no historical source for Vashti in conventional history. No, I'm sorry, not for Vashti, for Esther. Conventional history. We don't have any source for that, except there was one very cruel, a wicked queen that they have. That they say they think that's Esther. That she arranged for a civil war and she got rid of the, the thing. It's all perspective. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Yes. So,
It's like this morning, CNN reports how Israel bombed the Al Jazeera, whatever names, the news reports. Doesn't say in the title anything that these guys were Hamas associates, etc.
They leave out the details. So, Shifa. So these are coins of Hadrian and Trajan. Shifa, they sanded it down. Mipnei Tiva Shel Yerushalayim. Shifa maybe means it's old, because they wanted to get rid of these coins. Why did they want to get rid of them? Because they were old. They couldn't tell which coins they were because of the coins of Yerushalayim. And the coins of Yerushalayim maybe came from the Beis Hamikdash. And they wanted to conceal it until they found a source that the coins are permissible because Ubaba Prisim Chalalua. Which means that once the idolaters came in, they made everything profane, which means that everything became mundane. Chilalua over here instead of profane means mundane. It left its holy status and it became mundane, and that's why they were allowed to use it. So if that's the case, so then once the idolaters came into the temple, then the stones of the altar should also become mundane, and then why can't the Beis Hashmonai, the people of the Jewish people, come and take it and use it for themselves? Where it says Hassam, when it came to the coins, those coins were not used as service for Hashem. They were coins that were there, and maybe they were holy, but they weren't used for actual service. But here, the altar itself was used for Hashem. They're not going to take it and use it. What are they going to use it as? A dining room table? But they can't take that and use that as right? Okay. Let's go to the next Mishnah. It says, "Ovid kechav and mevatel avedis kavim shaloi v'shel chaveri." A non-Jew, we're up to a Mishnah on 52b. A non-Jew can nullify his own idol and also an idol of his friend, another non-Jew. Okay. Yisrael in mevatel avedis kavim shaloi v'kechavim. But a Jew cannot nullify an idol of an idolater. Missed a very important point. What about an idol of a Jew? Didn't say that. Guess it's obvious. Someone that nullifies an idol, he says that this idol is not an idol anymore. He's not using it anymore. When he does that, he's also nullifying all the things that come along. What do they call them?
Yeah.
Accessories. The accessories. So bittul mishamsheh, but let's say he nullifies just the accessories. So mishamsheh mutarim, the accessories become permissible. The asura, but the idol itself was not nullified. He's getting a new whatever for the new what do they need? A new tablet for the idol, updated version for the idol is so, but that doesn't mean he's getting rid of the idol. It means he's getting rid of the accessories. So the accessories become permissible, but not the idol. The Gemara says like this: Masni la Rebbe la Reb Shimon beRebbe. Rebbe was learning with his son, and he was teaching him this Mishnah. He said like this: A non-Jew can nullify his own idol, and he can also nullify the idol of his friend. Amalei, Rebbe calls his father Rebbe. Says like this: Shanisa lana bi'alduscha. You taught me when you were younger. You taught us when you were younger. I thought he would say when we were younger. It's interesting that he says when you were younger.
Older father.
I don't know. I would have thought that he would have said that when we're young. You taught us like we're young. Anyway, what did he teach us differently? He taught us not only can he nullify a non-Jew's idol, but he can even nullify the Jew's idol. It's a big chiddush.
Someone's part of the class. That's why he says us. He's how they translated it.
He didn't even say us. You taught us when you were younger. I want him to say you taught us when we were younger. Right. Why does he say in your younger years? It should say in our younger years.
Rashi has.
Yeah.
It says Rav Shimon was uncertain whether the change was intentional or due to an oversight. In other words, you purposely give, and we've had this many times, where they say you taught us previously in another advice, and now you're teaching us this. So is there a different reason that you're holding this way here? Or did you forget, and we've had that where you forgot what you
So he's alluding to the fact that maybe he was older, and maybe he forgot. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Gemara says, Yisrael mikam evatla. But is it possible that you can nullify the idol of a Jew? But we learned in a pasuk that it says that you have to hide it away. If a Jew, we quoted a pasuk that says a Jew first is a man that worships an idol, and he hides it away, he puts it away. That means that the idol needs to be put away if it's Jews. It can't be nullified. So how could Rebbe say that a non-Jew can nullify it? So Amar Rabbi Hillel Breder Rabbi Valas. Rabbi Hillel, the son of Rabbi Valas. He answers, when is this necessary that Rebbe taught this, that a non-Jew can nullify? Because there were two partners here. There was a partner, a Jewish partner, and a non-Jewish partner. So now the Gemara explains, what did he hold when he was young? What did he hold when he was older? When he was young, he held Yisrael. When the Jew was worshiping the idol, he's not really worshiping the idol himself. He's just relying on, it's an idol for my friend, so I'll worship it along with it. But whatever, he's not doing his own research. He's relying on him. Then, once the non-Jew nullifies his part, so the Jewish part also gets nullified. He was saying, I was relying on you. It's not really, it was going along. Ziknusay said when he got older, Yisrael died in Nafshei Palach. He said, no, the Jew was doing this on his own. And kimevat levikham denafshay Yisrael batal. But so when the non-Jew nullifies the idol, he can't nullify the Jew's part because the Jew had his own independent acceptance of this idol, and he can't nullify it. Ikad the Masila Sefer. Some learn the words of Reb Hillel, the son of Rabbi Valas, on the next part of the Mishnah. Next part of the Mishnah says, Yisrael eina mevatel avid cham shel kechavim. A Jew cannot nullify the idol of a non-Jew. So Gemara says, Pshita. Of course he can't nullify it. It has to be put away. We learned before, B'sham B'seiser, that if it's a Jewish idol. So he can't nullify his own idol. He can't nullify the idol of the non-Jew. Amar Rabbi Hillel, Rei de Rabbi Valas le'nitzcha. When is this necessary to teach me this halacha that he can't nullify it? Is sheyeshli bashutvis. We're talking about when he's a partner. The Kamash Malan, and it's coming to teach us Yisrael who doim mevatel David Kechavim, that the Jew can't nullify the part of David Kechavim, of the non-Jew. He can't nullify his partner's part. Aval David Kechavim denafshem mevatel, but the non-Jew can nullify his own part. There is a chiddush over there that even though it's owned by a Jew, but the non-Jew can still nullify his part. What do you do with these two parts to the idol? I'm not sure exactly. Some say that Reb Hillel's words about this partnership was really said about a brisa. Reb Shimon ben Menashe Eimer, the brisa says like this. Reb Shimon ben Menashe says, if a Jew owns an idol, it can never be nullified. Maya lamas, what does it mean never? We're talking about when the non-Jew has a partnership. Kamashma is coming to teach us the Yisrael Adaita Nafshei Palach, that the Jew is not relying on the non-Jew. The Jew is relying on himself, and so therefore it can never be nullified.
If a Jew and partners of some sort, and the non-Jew has an idol, what do you on a shelf? Is the Jew supposed to say, "Hey, get rid of that non-Jew from the business or the house that we share or something"?
There's a whole interesting discussion. It's probably going to come up, or maybe we had it already, with when a non-Jew and his brother, a ger, inherit the father's estate. In the estate are idols. And the non-Jew says, "You take the ger says, you take the idols, I'll take the other ones." Now, when he's doing that, he's actually purchasing other things with the portion of the idols, which could be prohibited. There's a discussion, and it's a Mishnah and a Gemara that would have something to do with that. Okay, let's leave it over here at the Mishnah. Yeshakayach, everyone.
Smith and
I
Wesson.
see you still charged for last.
Smith and Wesson.
Did you hear I was going to open a restaurant? It's going to name it Smith and Essen.